I'm gonna start over from the beginning.
You said you didn't want to say moist.
Yeah, and then I said it.
You said it,
yeah. But it's like, what else do you say?
Yeah, you're like, well,
it's
how do you
cake.
just...
What is another word?
It's not a damp cake.
It's not wet. It's not damp. Chris, what do you call...
Luscious.
What do you call cake that's moist, but you don't want to say moist?
A not dry cake.
This is one of my favorite recipes that I've done in the last couple of years. It is a beautiful tahini quick bread. So it's oil-based, it's relatively easy to mix and put together, and it stays really moist on the counter for like many, many days. Just a really fun recipe, and it has a beautiful swirl that we make with some ground black sesame. So I'm gonna show you how to do it. The first thing I wanna do is prepare my loaf pan. So it's a quick bread, it's oil rather than butter, so what I like about that is you don't have to have all room temperature ingredients. This recipe I make in the mixer because we actually end up beating the eggs and the sugar first to give the cake extra lift. I have a standard size loaf pan, and that measures 8.5 by 4.5. Usually you measure from the bottom. I'm gonna spray it with some just non-stick cooking spray. If I were using butter in the recipe, I would just grease the pan with butter because I already have it out, but we're using oil. And I'm gonna line it with parchment. So I tend to, you can do this kind of over the trash can or the sink so you don't mist everything with oil. And I just do a real quick coating, tilting the pan to get it on all four sides. Now I have a piece of parchment paper, and this has been trimmed to be the exact length of the pan. And then I lay just one sheet of parchment in so that it's covering the longer sides with this overhang. So this is lining just the longer sides and the bottom, and it has this overhang, and this is what I'm gonna use to lift it out of the pan after it's baked. And then, okay, so what I really wanna do is eliminate any air pockets and smooth the parchment onto every surface. You know, I basically use parchment to lie on like every baking vessel, and it's just a good insurance policy against sticking. And then just a quick spray on the parchment. That's ready to go. Actually, this is the thing I like to do for quick breads, especially with desserts that are a little less sweet. I dust the sides and bottom with sugar. It adds such a nice, like, satisfying, crunchy texture to the outside. So I'm gonna go in first with the sesame seeds, and it sticks to the oiled, slippery. It sticks to the oiled surface. And just kind of a light dusting of seeds of both colors. So these, you know, I pour the batter in, the seeds adhere to the batter, and it makes a very cool effect on the outside. So I'm just tilting the pan and kind of dusting on top of each surface rather than kind of like throwing the seeds around. That just helps to ensure that it's really gonna stick. Okay, so you can see a nice, fairly even coating all the way around. And now on top of that, I'm gonna go in with just my granulated sugar. And same thing, I'm angling the pan and sprinkling downward onto each surface. Not a lot, maybe, you know, it's probably not more than a tablespoon or two total. So it's adding as much texture as it is sweetness. Okay, that's it for the pan. I have a spice grinder here, spice grinder / coffee grinder. 2 tablespoons black sesame. And I'm gonna grind this up, and I'm gonna use this mixture to tint some of my batter, and it kind of turns like a cool, like charcoal gray. And that's how I'm gonna create that swirl effect. This is a fun recipe that kind of skirts the edge of sweet and savory, which is why I like that little coating of sugar on the outside. It just kind of takes it a little bit further into the sweet category. Okay, so I'm basically just milling these seeds into a fine powder. It kind of looks like ground poppy seeds. It's not super, super dark. So I'm gonna transfer this to a bowl. And in that same bowl, I'll mix part of the batter. And keep this off to the side for now. Okay, so now I'm gonna mix my dry ingredients. I have all-purpose flour. The leavener is a mix of baking powder and soda. So those go in. Kosher salt. And cardamom, which is a spice that I love to use in baking. It's sort of in the warm spice category, and it pairs really well with tahini. So not, you know, it can be actually a very overpowering flavor, but we use it pretty, what's the word I'm looking for? Sparingly.
Sparingly.
Thank you. We're using it sparingly.
That's the crossword word.
I was like, we're using it liberally, but I mean the opposite of that. Dry ingredients, just whisking to combine. And now my wet ingredients, which is a half a cup of tahini. And you can use any brand of tahini that you like. Freshness is important. It can kind of spoil. It's good to keep it in the refrigerator. Some brands can tend to be really bitter, but I don't know. This is, I think it was maybe the 365 brand. Okay, so I'm mixing it with yogurt. It's not Greek yogurt. It's just a full fat plain yogurt. And tahini has a tendency to seize when it's mixed with another liquid. So if your mixture like kind of thickens in a weird way, that's normal. Just proceed. It's not a big deal. You know, there's some quick breads you mix, you're dry, you're wet, and you just mix them together. With this recipe, in order to create a sort of a lighter texture, we're going to beat the eggs and sugar first. And eggs and sugar can kind of like whip into a very frothy, ribbony mixture, and that's what we're looking for. That's working air into it, and that air is helping, in addition to the baking powder and soda, to like rise the bread and give it kind of a fluffy texture. So 2 whole eggs into the mixer. I'm gonna get these going to break them up a little bit. And I'm gonna add my sugar. And vanilla extract. I'm waiting for it to get thick and pale and also triple in volume. This is just going to go a little bit. And in the meantime, I have a neutral oil like vegetable or grapeseed. And I'm adding to that 1.5 teaspoons of toasted sesame oil. This stuff is very pungent. It has an intense roasted sesame flavor. And this is a cool addition because it's giving it like a really strong undertone of sesame that I think could be overpowering, but we're only using 1.5 teaspoons. So I'm going to add that to my vegetable oil. This egg and sugar mixture, it's almost white. It's gone very, very pale. And tell me if you can see what that ribbon looks like as it falls into the bowl. Okay, so my eggs are at ribbon. I'm going to slowly stream in the oil to emulsify it into the eggs. It's kind of like making like a sweet mayonnaise because I'm emulsifying the eggs and oil together. There's sugar in there. So it should thicken even more as I stream in the oil. And I don't want to pour in all the oil at once because that will break the emulsion. I'm just going to go slowly. And I'm trying to avoid hitting the paddle so that it doesn't whip the oil around the sides. So I'm really just pouring it down the side of the bowl. Alright, so that looks great. Still nice and thick and light. And now I'm going to add my dry ingredients and my tahini mixture, alternating, starting and ending with dry. So 3 additions of flour, with only the mixer on slow. I don't want to over mix it, and I also don't want to, create a big cloud of flour. So eyeballing just 1/3, and letting that incorporate, and then half of my yogurt tahini mixture. Yogurt is great in quick breads because it adds, like the acidity in it adds tenderness. And I like sort of the tang that it adds. It makes for sort of a softer, more moist bread. Cake, I should say. Okay, rest of the flour mixture goes in. I'm going to stop the mixer before I see the last of the flour disappear and then finish mixing by hand. So it's a little bit undermixed at this point, because I'm going to finish it by hand. So I'm just folding this to combine, also scraping up anything around the sides and the bottom that haven't been incorporated. And now I want to transfer, I'm going to eyeball it, you don't have to be exact, about half of the batter into the bowl with the black sesame, and I'm going to fold that in until it's well mixed. Okay, so now is where I'm going to create the swirl in the pan.
So this will be the black swirl.
Yes, this mixture is going to create the contrast in color for our swirl. I'm just going to alternate big dollops of batter in here. I don't have to be precise in any way. I'm not trying to like make a certain pattern. I'm just going to let the dollops kind of fall where they may. You don't want to put half the batter in. You don't want to put all of one color in and then the other color on top, because then you don't have anything to swirl. So anywhere where I see the paler batter, I'm going to add a little bit of the black sesame, and vice versa. Okay, so now all of the batter has been kind of haphazardly added in like an alternating pattern. Now I'm gonna let it settle into an even layer, and now I have a skewer. You could use a toothpick, a metal skewer, anything like a cake tester would work, although you want something with a little bit of like a little width. And I'm just gonna make some kind of wide figure eights all across the cake, pressing the skewer all the way down. So I want to hit the bottom. I don't want to drag across the bottom because I don't want to disturb the sesame seeds, but really making sure that the skewer is going all the way through the batter. And I think I did probably around 4 figure eights to make a big swirl. And I don't want to go beyond that because I don't want to start to then blend the two colors. But that's really it. And now this gets a little bit more sugar and some sesame seeds on top. Just to mirror the sides and bottom, I'm adding more of the white and black sesame and a sprinkling of sugar. So this is going to go into the center of a 350 oven. So it'll bake about an hour, between 55 and 65 minutes, and I'll test it when it's starting to look done. It'll dome and then crack down the middle. And I want a cake tester inserted into the center to come out clean. So here we go. So here's the cake. It's really beautifully domed. You can see there's some of the black sesame area poking through. So you already kind of get a hint that there's a marble going on. Just going to use the parchment to lift the cake out. And this is totally cooled, so no warmth at all anywhere. And now what I really want to do is cut into it so you can see what the swirl looks like in the interior. So I'm going to cut it in half. Ooh, beautiful. Okay. So you can see not a dramatic difference in color, but certainly very distinctive swirl. So it looks really nice. It's fun to sort of see what the interior looks like. I made this several times, and each one is a little bit different, depending on how your dollops kind of fall. So one thing is it's very well baked. Like there's nice browning all the way around, but the inside is still soft and moist, and so fragrant too. You get like the real smell of sesame in there. I want to just taste it. Sorry. I love the top because I love the crackly sugar. Such good crunch. Delicious. One thing I love about quick breads, anything that's oil-based, is the longer it sits, the better it gets. So if you're having company over, you can make the whole loaf like 1, even 2 days ahead. Just let it cool completely, wrap it at room temperature, let it sit, and by the time you serve it, it will have really like developed even better texture and flavor. So really good with a cup of tea. This is such a fun recipe. It's something you can kind of just keep around, eat a slice after dinner or when friends come over. It's really versatile because it's not too sweet and has such wonderful like round sesame flavor. So yeah, try it out. Hope you like it, and thanks for watching. Coffee cake to me is like a very specific thing that's like streusel topping, cake. Coffee cake is to me is cake. This is something, I don't know, for quick breads, it's like, for me it's always oil-based, and one of those things that you can keep on your counter for the better part of a week, even an entire week.